Hello. I've been doing a lot of talking through um, Skype and share talk with people who want to learn a foreign language. And I know that one of the problems is their biggest ego. Sometimes our ego can work both ways, in a good way or in a bad way. The good way is the motivation. We to want to show ourselves or other people that we can make it, learning a foreign language or whatever we're going to do. Then, normally, if projecting ourselves to other people is more important than the thing in itself, the thing, instead of becoming the aim, becomes the means to an end. The end is to boast, to feel better because other people admire us for our achievements. That becomes an hindrance. And that happens when people learn a foreign language. So when you come up, uh, you run into new problems, linguistic problems. You encounter, it is normal, encounter difficulties because sometimes you get a reality check, you think you know the language, and at the end of the day, you end up making many mistakes. So what happens? Many people want to keep the level of their conversation low, consciously or not consciously. They tend to avoid the point where they would make a real headway. That means that when they get some feedback and they face their mistakes, being inadequate, whatever, wrong pronunciation, poor vocabulary, um, wrong grammar. And it happens. I mean, if you were perfect, you wouldn't be there anyway. The problem is when people want to have a real chat when they don't have a basic knowledge, and they think they can acquire that basic knowledge through written chat. And that doesn't work for English, mainly because of the discrepancies between the written language and the spoken language. And I'm gonna okay, and that doesn't happen, generally speaking. It never happens. The way I see it, you should get into this written language where your level is quite advanced. Otherwise, you will end up having a poor level conversation and with people who are wary of correcting, because correcting another person, it is not easy, just because of this ego thing. If you're not there to be corrected, there is very, very few things you can learn, because the frequency of the text being a test that has to be typed. People think and type, because when you have a chat on the internet, it's not a given that the person reply immediately. Sometimes it takes some seconds, sometimes more than that. and that makes conversation very slow, and the level of learning, the speed of learning, quite slow, so it's not efficient at all. The second thing, many times you have a chat between non-native speakers, so they, instead of learning together, they pass on to the other person different mistakes, and if you get away with a mistake, in your view, it isn't a mistake. That's your interlingua. That's the feel of the language you can have. You can have a feel of the language, but it's not the real one. And sometimes it happens, oh, but is it like this? I always said like that. And he, as I said, he got away with that because sometimes you don't speak with native speakers. If you speak with people who think you are better, that are worse than you are, they think that you are right and you wouldn't repeat the mistake you've just made. So let's get rid of our ego. Let's jump into the deep end and speak with native speakers and tell them, correct me. Obviously, we make a mistake every 2 sentences, every 2 words. It doesn't work like this. The person you're chatting with or you're speaking with would be very annoyed and to correct you every 2 words unless he or she is your teacher. So teachers, first, you should be ashamed in front of your teacher. It's like going to a psychiatrist, or it's like getting a confession. Okay, these are professionals and they are not to judge you. So that's the good of teachers. I'm not for much of formal training, but as I said before, teachers can make even conversation not haphazard but focused on your level and giving you all what you need for your level. And at the same time, you're practicing, you think you're speaking, you are speaking, but all this speaking is tailored towards your needs. That's the idea. So when you have all these people who chat in English making a lot of mistakes with no feedback, there's no point in it. It's completely useless or is counterproductive. So I think that people should put their ego aside and face the reality and get a reality check. Sometimes we think we are much better than what we are, and sometimes we think that just chatting with people in a foreign language, it's an effective way to learn the language. And I tell you, it's not an effective way. It can be when you are on an intermediate, upper intermediate level, it can be a good way to learn some slang, but you don't learn like this. We have to know what is the basic, the meat and potato things, the nuts and bolts when you learn a foreign language, and what is something more. That's the cherry on the cake, the last thing you do, and something you do aside, but is not the essential part of our learning. So let's face the music. Learning a foreign language implies a program, implies being exposed to a language that we can absorb, and with a little bit, and we can absorb and we can learn something from that language. It's like training. When you training, when you're training for a sport, you have to do what your body can do. And that means not too much, not too little. And you know what you're doing, and every time you know when to raise the bar, when to take a rest, and when to work hard. That is the point. And we shouldn't get discouraged with we discover that we don't know the language as well as we thought. That's normal. If you make a mistake and you are corrected and you understand the mistake and you jot down the mistake and you look up, for example, in book, you're looking for the rule, the pattern in a book, on the web, you speak with other native speakers, you really learn something from each and every mistake. Every mistake you make and you notice that and you understand that it's a mistake less in the future. So do not avoid mistakes. It's normal. It's only normal that when you speak quite fluently and you are yourself, sometimes there are mistakes. Sometimes you correct yourself, and sometimes you don't even know it's a mistake. Sometimes you are not sure. There are different kinds of mistakes. The important thing, only when it's a slip of the tongue, okay, it's something that even a native speaker can do. Maybe it's something that is really tricky in the language even for native speakers. Sometimes we are tired, we make stupid mistakes, and when people are tired, even native speakers come up with some real duties. Duties, what's the name? Pearls, with an Italian. Okay, that's the idea. Do not avoid speaking a language. Try to make this experience a way to first check up on your English. Let's say, what happens when I speak freely? If can I use normally without thinking all this knowledge that I've been passively acquiring in the last months? Let's see what happens when I speak. Sometimes we discover we're not that good, but sometimes we discover that we can do even more than what we expected for. Okay, that's it. Goodbye.